are you?
My name's Bond. James Bond.
Bond. James Bond. Bond, what do you think you're doing?
Keeping the British end up, sir.
Welcome to James Bond Radio. News, reviews, and discussion of all things 007.
Pussy.
As you can see, I have no problem with female authority.
Oh, pipe down, 007.
Do you expect me to talk?
No, Mr. Bond, I expect you to die.
Hello and welcome to James Bond Radio. I'm Tom Sears and I've got my good buddy Chris Wright. Say hello, Chris.
Hello, Chris.
Yeah. How you doing today, Chris? You all right?
I'm not too bad. Not too
Good,
bad.
good, good. Well, today, you know what we're talking about, don't you?
Oh, go on. You tell me.
We're talking about the new Fleming series that was on Sky Atlantic if you're in the UK, or BBC America if you're in the States, or I believe anywhere else in the world as well. I'm not sure about that. So we're looking at the series and what we think. I'm sensing mixed reviews from yourself
between us,
myself.
or yeah.
I think everybody, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
But we'll obviously chat on about that and the real Mr. Fleming as well in a little bit. But do you know what I think we should start with? I think we should start with a bit of trivia.
Ooh, I like a bit of trivia, me.
Okay, cool. All right. I think you should go first.
Really? Okay. Yeah. Let me see. Okay, so as we're talking about Fleming, it's a little trivia question here. Okay, so here goes. What was Noel Coward's name for Ian Fleming's house in Jamaica?
It's a good question. One I don't think I know the answer to, but hopefully it'll pop into my brain at some point.
Okay, cool.
All right, my question of the day is, who played Ian Fleming in the TV movie The Secret Life of Ian Fleming?
Oof. I thought you were going to say the most recent TV episode.
No, that would have been too obvious, and we wouldn't have needed to reveal that at all.
No.
But yeah, we'll reveal the answers to those two questions at some point throughout today's episode. But yeah, let's crack on and talk about Fleming the series. So, what were your initial thoughts?
Initial thoughts overall was, well, first of all, I'm glad they did it, just because it's something that I'm interested in. Obviously, yourself and I guess pretty much most Bond fans would be interested to see something like that. So first of all, I'm glad they did do it. Upon watching it, I in terms of production value and stuff like that, I thought it looked good. The opening sort of scene of episode 1 looked nice, and they seemed to capture a little bit of Bond in there, a bit of essence of that sort of style. So overall, my sort of initial thoughts were, this could be okay. This could be okay. Let's see. There is one or two things I wasn't sure about, which I guess we can go into. But overall, I'm glad it was there, basically.
Yeah, I think for me, when I kind of saw the trailer a few months back and stuff, I thought, okay, cool, this sounds good. But my initial thoughts were like, this guy, he doesn't is he right for the role? I don't know. He just doesn't seem to look right for me.
No.
Which I must say, it was confirmed after I watched the 4 episodes. But yeah, I think when I first put it on, I was like, okay, all judgments aside, let's get stuck in. I think the opening part was brilliant, sort of swooping in over GoldenEye and Jamaica and stuff, and that scene on the boat and the squid fishing or whatever it was they were doing with the harpoons and stuff. I mean, it had it perfectly. Girl in a bikini, brilliant, great stuff. Always nice. I thought that sort of set the tone. But for me, what I don't know, what kind of it sort of had quite a cheap feel to it. I thought, in terms of production value, it was there's a lot of those establishing shots were really quite ropey CGI. Even that first one coming in across the water over Jamaica and stuff, and just was that scene where he's on the train with his brother and stuff in the first episode, and it comes in over the mountains and there's the train. It was just blatant computer generated graphics, and then cuts to the interior, and it just sort of felt a bit cobbled together for me. I don't know. How do you feel about that?
I think in terms of the actual sets, when they use sets, the sets themselves weren't too bad. The interior of the train, the Admiralty office where Fleming eventually works, that wasn't too bad a set. But any of the establishing shots you're definitely right. They straight away you could tell it wasn't real. There's a bit later on where there's sort of planes coming and bombing, and it almost looks like computer game sort of style graphic, and straight away you're a bit like, just get into the scene. I don't want to see that. If it's not real, just don't show me.
Yeah, that's our motto, isn't it, when it comes to anything Bond related? If it's not real, don't
Exactly.
bloody do it.
Exactly.
So there we go. I tell you one thing that did strike me is, it was like, that's actually really nice.
Yeah.
Is the score? I thought that was great. Like, it was very Bondian. Obviously, there were a few like little Bondian Bond theme nods here and there, littered throughout. You'd get the kind of stuff coming in, and which was cool. But I thought generally that was like a really classy score without being cheesy. You could have so easily been like bang ding dang dang every 5 seconds, and there wasn't any of that, which was great. It was quite a classy score, I thought.
Yeah, I'm not sure who actually did the scores. Do you remember? Did you find out at all?
Do you know what? I didn't. That's a hole in my research, man.
Yeah.
We've just let the entire listening public down with our lack of professionalism on that front.
Well, that's all right. We'll find out afterwards.
Yeah. We'll find out afterwards and post it on the Facebook forum.
Exactly.
There you go. But whoever did that, well done, you.
Yeah, it was nice. It was good because it did sort of bring a little smile on your face when you heard the few little bars, and you're like, okay, that's not bad. And,
sorry, go on, keep going. I got excited and I butted in.
Go on, I like your excitement. Go for it.
I was going to say, which is one of the things when you hear those little strains of the Bond theme, to bring everything back to Casino Royale again, which I like to do. That part where he first puts the dinner jacket in the dicky bow on and he's checking himself out in the mirror in the bathroom, when you just hear the little faint strains of it kick in, that excites me very much. And and they did that a lot throughout the Fleming thing. Anything sort of vaguely Bondian, they would kind of sort of bring that in, but they didn't overdo it, which I thought was nice.
It's good. It was a good idea. Probably not quite as excitable as Casino Royale, but it was good. It's nice to have. There was quite a few other touches which I thought were quite good. They obviously, with at Admiral Godfrey's office, they had the big red leather door, and it was a very big door as well, you know. And obviously that is an homage to the film, and I quite like that. And that whole setup in that scene was very much Bond and M and Fleming and Admiral Godfrey. Obviously, there's inspiration for M with the character of Godfrey, and it had that sort of tone to it, didn't it?
Without a doubt, I think that's something I want in my life. Actually, I want my bedroom door to be a red leather studded door. That would be nice. Absolutely. I think that whole thing, you had like the hat stand in Monday's office, who was obviously a little spin on Moneypenny, and the whole Sir John Godfrey kind of thing, which was cool. But I thought one of the things I remember hearing in an interview with Dominic Cooper, he was saying how they'd gone for a more dramatized, is that a word? Dramatized. That's
dramatized.
Dramatized version of Fleming's life, where they've kind of made a few bits up and to make it a bit more exciting and stuff, which is fair enough. I don't think you really need to do that because his life was interesting enough anyway, I think. But like, I sort of doing a bit of research after I watched it, I was like, what? How much of this is real and how much of it is nonsense? But from what I can gather, a lot of the kind of the bigger situations that happened throughout the whole series, he was involved in and did happen. But it was just like perhaps how those events happened were kind of made a bit more glossy for the viewers. Yeah,
I think they definitely sort of gave artistic license to some of the escapades and situations he found himself in. But like you said, if anyone sort of reads books about him or watches documentaries, there are so many things that did happen which were just sort of crazy and fantastic, and a lot of those things were used in the TV series, which is great. I think towards the end of the series, it gets a little bit more fantastical when he's off in the field doing this, that, and the other. And although I actually quite like that bit, which we can, I suppose, chat about a bit later, it was definitely a bit more far-fetched and a bit more of the dramatized element of the series. But
I suppose it's a difficult one, isn't it? It's like when you're making, a 4-parter or something like that, it's like, how do you make it exciting enough and have like some kind of story arc that's going to keep the average person involved throughout? I suppose it's a very tricky one to play off. But what did you think of Dominic Cooper then as playing Fleming?
I mean, I don't mind him as an actor. I've seen him in a few films, and some of the stuff that he's done, he has been very, very good in. I think he did, he was good in this. He was good at doing what he did, but he's just not Fleming, if you know what I mean. he's the wrong sort of look. He's still got sort of a look that I guess girls would go for, but he's not got sort of a Fleming look. He's a bit short. Fleming was kind of tall and slim, and he's I don't know how tall but he doesn't give that sort of
stature.
Yes, that he doesn't. I guess that not intimidation aspect, but you'd have control. You can imagine Fleming would walk in and he'd have control over whoever was in a room. Dominic Cooper didn't quite have that. So although I liked him and I still think he's a good actor, I think there are other choices for that role that might have been better, basically.
Yeah, I feel exactly the same, in the sense that, like, when you see footage of Fleming and stuff, he's got that very upper class voice. He's talking, he's got that kind of vibe going on. But also, you could imagine, like, he stature, I suppose, is the word that you would use to describe it, in the sense that he looked very upper class, he sounded very upper class. And you could imagine him giving orders and people listening to them and taking notice of that. Yeah. Whereas Dominic Cooper, do you know who Dominic Cooper reminds me of in a weird way? And I think you probably won't know this. Right, you won't see it unless you look at him again. You'll be like, actually, I can see it. Del Boy Trotter. Like, really? Yeah, there's some of those scenes where he's like stood at the bar and stuff. And I thought if he had like a sheepskin coat on and one of those flat caps, like, he wouldn't be far off Del Boy. But
which is not too similar to Fleming, then.
No, not at all. Personally, and this is a name that I didn't really, well, I've heard of the name, but I haven't really known his work, is Eddie Redmayne as an actor. Now, when I Googled that fella, I looked him up on the old image search, and he actually kind of looks a bit like Fleming. He's got there's something about his mouth and like the shape of his face. He looks like a young Fleming, and I think he'd have been a great choice to do it.
I think he'd be brilliant. I've seen him in quite a few things. He's in the Week with Marilyn, about Marilyn Monroe, and he played the upper class English gent in that. And he was in Les Mis. I know it's a bit different sort of style, but everything that I've seen him in, he's a good actor, and he has got that upper class to him, but not not in a bad way. He would pull it off, and he has got a look, and he has got a bit more of that stature. And it's a shame that he wasn't considered. Because I think he probably would have been better suited to that part, I think.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things. It's like, you do what you can with the tools that you're given. And I just think Dominic Cooper didn't. The thing for me is I didn't feel like Fleming was really likable throughout this whole thing. It's like, Bond can do something where he acts like a bit of a prick and you think, man, you're so fucking cool. You know what I mean? And he gets away with it, and you still like him because of it. I don't know if you ever watched Breaking Bad. Have you ever seen that show?
No, don't go there yet, because I haven't started.
All right, okay, cool. Well, like, without revealing anything to you, it's like the main guy is somewhat villainous, but you still root for him and you still support him, even though he's a fucking asshole.
Yeah.
Fleming throughout this, I just sort of wanted to punch him a little bit. Like, he was just smarmy all throughout, and not in a good way. And it's just that sort of smarm face Dominic Cooper pulled on. It was like this sort of like kind of vibe.
I wish the audience could see that, because that was...
Well, if you're watching on YouTube, I'll do my smarm face up close. But any listeners probably won't. It was like this, like, it's just the scenes at the casino and stuff. It's just like, oh man, I don't want to be friends with you.
No, it seemed a bit forced, didn't it? Like,
exactly.
It wasn't very natural. Someone who has been brought up in that way, who is used to that lifestyle, it doesn't need to be forced. It comes naturally. You are part of the, I suppose, establishment or whatever you call it back then, and you just couldn't see him doing it. The other thing as well, I mean, I know Eddie Redmayne is a young sort of actor as well, but he just seemed too young to me, Dominic Cooper. I know this is earlier in Fleming's life and stuff, but he still seemed like a boy in a way. Like he didn't seem like a man. He didn't seem old enough. And I did actually think the same of Godfrey, the guy who played Admiral Godfrey. I thought played it well, but I don't know if he was chosen like that young because Dominic Cooper looked that much younger than Fleming might have done. But to me, both of those almost seemed too young to be in the roles that they were doing.
Yeah, I don't know. It's an odd one. I think the whole thing is a bit of an oddity, to be honest with you. Like, a lot of it in terms of the casting, the production value, is some of the things that happen in the episodes are just a bit like, like, why would you do that? I don't know. And maybe there was budgetary limitations or something that caused a lot of that. But yeah, I felt like Fleming wasn't likable. Like, he didn't sort of do anything remotely cool, and it felt like a lot of the times whenever he did do something that was vaguely Bondian, it was like, look, he's doing something a bit Bondy. Look, everybody, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it just sort of didn't really get it. And I think with John Godfrey, I mean, like, they played that guy like he was a wimp. Like, did you notice how he just was submissive to Fleming in every scene? And he was like,
scene,
no, I want to do this. He's like, well, okay, Fleming, I like you, so why not? And that was it.
Yeah.
And there was he didn't have that sort of steely M vibe about him. You know what I mean? I almost wanted it to be, okay, Fleming comes up with an idea for the Commandos or whatever, and he says, absolutely not. Fleming goes and does it anyway, and it's a massive success. And then something happens from there. But it was just like this guy would just sort of roll over and take whatever Fleming dished out to him.
Yeah, a bit like Lara Pulver, the actress who played Anne.
Yes. Now, I suppose the elephant in the room is another thing that made me very uncomfortable throughout this. Is the fact that Fleming is very, very rapey throughout all 4 episodes of this, isn't it?
He is.
If I didn't know any better, I would say the only way Fleming ever, got with the ladies is by beating them up, flipping them over, and taking them from behind. And I tell you the worst thing as well. And not having seen Breaking Bad, you won't get this reference.
Right, okay.
But it's his sex face, man. I just felt so uncomfortable looking at that. I didn't want to look at my television, Right. He's got this kind of grizzly growl on his face. Now, when you meet Uncle Tio in Breaking Bad, he's an old man.
Right.
You'll look out for that when you finally get around to watching it, because he has Uncle Tio face.
Okay.
I don't need to see Fleming smacking her up in every episode, every 5 minutes. And that face on screen. I mean, how did you feel about that? Well, I bet you probably liked it, didn't you?
Well, first of all, I just love the fact that you've perfected Dominic Cooper's smarm face and his sex face. So 2 more and you'll be like sorted. So I mean, there is stories of the whole sort of he did have that sort of sadomasochistic side to him with the ladies. And I guess the whole spanking thing, although it's it's a bit sort of shocking or whatever, that might have been, that might have happened. It might have been commonplace. I don't know. But the thing that kind of got me was the hitting as well, because that's when, and like you said, the sort of, it is almost a bit rapey, and then it's almost the woman doesn't get a choice until halfway through, and then she gets to see if she likes it or not. Yeah. So it's like,
those were the days, weren't they, Chris? Well, come on.
What are we doing in this century? But so that was obviously, it was a bit shocking to watch, but it played, that's the thing, it played Fleming as a complete prick when it comes to that sort of thing. It played his mum as an absolute bitch. And if I was Fleming and I was alive now and I saw my mum being portrayed like that, I would go ballistic. Like, no one was played in a good light, were they really?
I think that's one of my major gripes with this, is I didn't like anybody throughout this entire show.
The Monday character was kind of okay.
I was just about to say that. She was the only one who, like, if you were at a dinner party with all of these characters, she's the only one I'd hang out with. Yeah. Like, it just everybody just felt a bit off. And I know his mum was, supposed to be a really overbearing character and stuff, and might reflect his attitude to women and amongst other things as he grew older, and you see that written in the books all the time, the sexism and all that kind of stuff. But like I felt like, again, you almost like you would want the mother to be like an adversarial figure that the audience hates, and then by the way Fleming interacts with her, it makes you warm to him more. Yeah. But I didn't feel that at all throughout anything. It was just I feel like the whole thing was a missed opportunity, really. It was just not done quite right.
I think, every character needs to have some redeeming qualities, and in the TV series, his mum just didn't have any. She reminded me of if you must have Titanic, Kate Winslet's mum in Titanic.
Very much so.
It was basically that character reportrayed as Evelyn Fleming. It's exactly the same character, basically. Yeah. And I'm sure she must have been nicer than that. I know, I'm sure she must have been. Like, I know they want drama, and that's fine, but you still got to give the characters a warm side as well. Just something, and they just didn't do it. I don't know why, but. It was
it's a funny one how that played off. But again, like getting back to the knocking the women around and beating them up. And there's that scene in one of the episodes where she's literally led there bruised up, and he calls her my black and blue baby or something. It was just like, man, like even if he was into that, do we need to see it in every episode? Like you could have just done one little scene and you could have been like, wow, Ian was a bit of a freak. I didn't know that. But it was just like, seemed to be every interaction with a lady who was his own age, roughly. It would end up with him taking them roughly from behind and beating the shit out of them, which it's not really, not really proper, is it?
No, it's not great. And I'm sure that however sort of strange he was in that area, or whatever his tendencies were, I'm sure that wasn't the case throughout his whole thing. Again, they could have shown some sort of different side there, perhaps. I don't know. There was one of the female characters who played Muriel Wright. I thought she was quite good.
I tell you what, Muriel was gorgeous.
Yeah, I think
my goodness,
the actress, I think her name was Annabelle Wallis. I think
that's
her
the
name
one.
is. And I thought she was actually quite good as well, because she played it as sort of the unrequited love, and she came across well. You could warm to her character. You could warm to the Monday character. Everyone else is just
that's
not
true.
so
Actually,
much.
I mean, the thing with Muriel Wright is she was they say that she was the kind of the original Bond girl, in the sense that they were having an affair or whatever you would call it, and she was killed during the Blitz, during the war in London and stuff, and she was a motorcycle courier for the army, I think it was, just delivering papers and stuff like that. And she was killed, and they said that he never fully recovered from losing her, kind of thing, after she died. So that's why him and Anne Fleming weren't the best suited, and kind of had a bit of a rocky relationship. But yeah, that's another one. She was great, I think. I mean, she could almost be a proper Bond girl in one of the Bond movies. She was great.
She's got a really nice look to her, hasn't she? And she's obviously a good actress. And so yeah, shout out for Annabelle Wallis for perhaps Bond 24. Who knows?
Yeah.
But I there was another thing as well. Is did you understand like how she died? I've sort of found out about it since, but in the TV series, when he comes back and she's just on the bed, I was like, well, has she committed suicide? Has she, what's happened? Has she, it didn't really explain it to me. How did you find that?
Because I, if I remember correctly, in real life, it was a bomb that killed her during the Blitz, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So I didn't question that because I knew that. But now you've said that, actually, all you see is a broken window and her lying on the bed.
Yeah, which doesn't tell you anything.
Which could mean anything. Somebody could have thrown a brick through the window, and that could have been what killed her.
Yeah,
that's a good point. Actually, I hadn't considered that. It was just because I knew that's how she died anyway that I just sort of dealt with that. Yeah, but I think the moment she kind of died in episode 2, I believe. Sorry, spoilers. Yeah, I should say, I suppose, before we move forward, that this is going to be spoiler ridden if you haven't seen them yet. After she was gone, it kind of, I felt it dipped somewhat. I think she was a key part of like, well, she was only one of 2 of the likable things in the series. So like after she went, it was a bit like, oh, which was a shame.
And you had obviously the love triangle with her and Ian and O'Neill. And obviously one sort of leg is taken away from a tripod, it falls or whatever. Yeah. And it felt a bit like that, I mean, the whole Ian, the whole sort of Fleming, and obviously they had an interesting relationship, a complicated one. But it did seem repetitive a bit in terms of how you see them interact and everything. And I don't know, or maybe it was that way, I'm not sure, but it just seemed to not throw up anything new. I tell
you what I found throughout, sort of like, that scene where he first goes into John Godfrey's office and he comes out and there's a bit of chit chat with Monday, who was fictional apparently. There was no Monday. She's obviously the template for Moneypenny. There was all these sort of like Bondian quips that he was like throwing out, where he's like, "Don't worry, I'm good with my hands," and all that kind of stuff, and it just felt a bit like, But having said that, right, one of my favorite Fleming quotes of all time. I was watching a documentary once, and there was a lady that Fleming once knew, and they were at a party together, and he walked up to her. This is real life, actually happened according to her, and she said he walks up to her, plants a kiss on her immediately before he even says hello, and says, "You're very beautiful. I do hope you're not a lesbian."
That is a line.
And I was like, dude, that's confidence for you right there.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
I suppose, like, not that that's a particularly Bondian line, but you've got the genesis of it there, I suppose.
Yeah. Well,
But,
the forwardness.
yeah, absolutely. But I just thought, what a line, man! What a way,
Yeah.
It's all very funny. But one of the things I did like actually was, you remember that sequence where they're talking about where he comes up with the idea of like washing somebody up on the beach loaded with fake documents.
Yeah.
That was all real. That was all good. And I actually read the book about that. It's called Operation Mincemeat. I read the book last year, and basically it's that. And again, like why you feel the need to dramatize something when the reality is so amazing in itself. Basically, what they did is they took like some guy who was already dead. I think he was a homeless guy. Dressed him up in an airman's uniform, dropped him off the coast of Spain, loaded with fake documents. And the idea was the Allies were going to invade Sicily, but they wanted to. Sicily was heavily defended, so they wanted to let the Nazis think that they were going to invade through Greece. So all the papers on him alluded to the fact that there was going to be an imminent invasion in Greece. The body gets washed up on the shore in Spain, and those very documents actually ended up on Hitler's desk like several weeks later, which I mean is just like, you think the chances of that happening are so slim. Like even that idea, you'd be like, come on, man, that would never work. But they did it, and it actually worked. They moved a load of troops away from Sicily, and the Allies invaded through Sicily, and the mission was like a complete success. And that was all down to Fleming. Like he dreamt up that whole thing, which is incredible. But yeah, check out the book to the listeners. Check out the book Operation Mincemeat by Ben McIntyre. Really, really good, and features a lot about Fleming in there. So that's good. And it's kind of like a lot of those bigger situations, like I say, actually did happen. And it was just like, because I was worried about that, them just making up whatever they wanted to kind of fit it. But there was a lot of those situations were kind of real, which is great.
Yeah, and the other thing I guess that they showed was Fleming setting up the whole 30 command assault unit sort of thing, where it's an interesting sort of background where at the start when you saw him going into the training camp and he's like, no, they're not right, they're not right. And it wasn't because they couldn't shoot or couldn't fight or whatever. It's because basically they weren't bastards, and he needed people who didn't give a shit about anything. And obviously, it was quite interesting when there was, I think the guy in the TV series was Dixon. I don't know if that was his name in real life, but obviously they found out that he'd sort of been court-martialed or something and then beat his way to escape or something along those lines, and thought, right, he's the sort of material we want. And it is quite. I guess there's slight parallels with Bond character there as well, with a bit of the rebel and everything like that.
I suppose that's the key thing to it, isn't it? Is like people who perhaps sort of bend the rules somewhat and kind of and do it, which is interesting. But yeah, that's, in fact, I've got a book called Ian Fleming's Commandos, which is all about that stuff. I haven't actually got around to reading it yet, so that'll inspire me to get stuck into that.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it was cool. I mean, like I say, I think the material it covers, like throughout each of the episodes, is great. And I mean, that leads us on to the next one, which is the opening of episode 2 when they're in Lisbon.
That was good.
And you've got the scene where there's the Nazis there, and it's a well-known story that like Fleming was in Lisbon, and he wanted to do what Bond does in Casino Royale and bankrupt the Nazis, basically clean them out. But obviously, in reality, it didn't quite go that way. And he bankered them. Was it 3 times he bankered them?
3 times, yeah.
And he lost every single one.
Yeah.
So that's a very funny story, I think. And that episode, when episode 2 opened with that, I thought to myself, if he wins this, I'm going to be very upset and I'm going to switch it off immediately. So I'm glad that they kind of stuck to fact on that.
Strangely, that exact thought crossed my mind as well.
Yeah. So I thought that was cool. Like you've got the game. Is it Baccarat they're playing or Chemin de Fer?
Yeah, same thing. Yeah.
Is that the same game?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. All right, I've learned something today. Yeah, and again, like you've just got a lot of awkward sex in this program. Like you remember, there's the scene where all of a sudden the Nazi and his girlfriend are just kind of banging away in the toilets.
Toilet, yeah.
And it's just like, was that? And then the guy comes in with the garrote wire, and it's like, is that really necessary?
That's the sort of thing. Like the whole playing the gambling against the Germans and losing. I was like loving that scene. I thought it was great. It was well acted. It was quite tense, and I thought they played it really well. And then when he went into the bathroom, I mean, that must be fabrication, or maybe it's not. I don't know, but I've never heard of anything above and beyond the gambling. So I guess they thought they had to invent something. and the idea of the German, he was like screwing. She was like a Jew, wasn't she?
That's
Sort of
right. Yeah.
trying to trap him, sort of thing. Which there's something to it, but it didn't really seem part of the story almost.
Yeah, it did feel tacked on, and just sort of like the guy comes in and garrots the Nazi guy, and it was like, so what was that all about? Like, where did that lead? What was that all about? It didn't really do anything. And then like a lot of the dialogue, she was like, "I am a Jew, help me, you know what they're doing to us," and then he swoops in and like helps her escape, and it was just like, it just feels a bit forced, really, and not really doing it. But hey ho, I suppose we can forgive that. Maybe what we need to do is do one of your editing jobs, like you say with Die Another Day, and just cut out all the shit and then keep the actual stuff that happened. And we'll end up with probably one episode, 1 hour long episode. Yeah.
But it'll be a good one.
So I suppose the kind of the flow of episode 2 is all about the French ships, isn't it? Which again is a real situation that Fleming was involved in. I'm not sure quite to what level he was involved, but you had French admiral called Darlon, who basically it's set at the point where the Nazis are about to invade France and get to Paris, and the concern at the time was, well, we don't want the Nazis to get hold of the French Navy and use it against us, basically. So Fleming goes in, steps in, and says that you either give us your ships or we're going to bomb them anyway before the Nazis get here. Which I believe that part is fabricated. I know he was in France and had some contact with Admiral Darlan during that kind of time, but whether he did what he did in the show, which is march into his office uninvited and just say like, we're going to bomb you unless you give us our ships, I can't see that being true, to be honest.
No, I'm not sure. I mean, it is an intriguing sort of aspect though of the whole war. The fact that if Germany, I still don't know what happened to the French ships. Were they bombed? Did the Germans take them? Did the British get them? I still don't know. But
it's a good point. It's something they don't explain.
No, they don't sort of expand on. But as like a major point for the war in terms of which way it could swing depending on the sort of French Navy, I found that a really intriguing aspect. But it's a shame that they didn't sort of follow it through and let you know what happened, really.
Yeah, it's a weird one. Which also brings me on to a question that happens 2, maybe 3 times throughout the 4 episodes. Okay. And I have still no clue why it's even done or mentioned. Why is everyone calling him a chocolate sailor?
Right. When I was watching it, I had no idea whatsoever. And I did have a quick look up, and apparently that was his name. It relates to him being behind a desk. And not being an actual sort of soldier out in the field or a Navy officer out in the field. Why sitting behind a desk is called a chocolate soldier?
Chocolate sailor, wasn't it?
Chocolate sailor, sorry.
Yeah.
I'm not entirely sure. I guess I don't know.
See, I thought it was alluding to the fact that he preferred anal intercourse rather than standard. That's what my initial mind went to, but maybe not.
I thought he was just like eating chocolate. But no, I'm not sure. All I can gather is that it was because he was sat behind a desk. Maybe it's because the desks were all brown wooden desks and brown. I don't know. Who knows? Chocolate brown.
Know. Could be.
Or maybe it's the fact that chocolate's a good life. It was rationed during the war. So he's a chocolate sailor because he's got the good life and he doesn't have to risk himself.
I reckon you've probably got it there. That's a very, very good idea. Yeah, I think that's probably what it would have been. Yeah,
maybe. But yeah, it's a strange sort of phrase anyway, isn't it?
Yeah. The other thing as well is again, a lot of the characters, like after, obviously Monday, like I said, was a fictional character. It's like, I wondered how many...
Apparently there was a secretary for Godfrey, but her name wasn't Monday. I think it was someone there was someone that Moneypenny was based on in real life, but it just wasn't. She just wasn't called Monday. It was something else. But
so like after that point, I was like, well, how many of these people are real? How many of these situations are real? And that was kind of like a theme for me throughout. I was like, okay, so let's look this up and see what actually happened here. And the whole kind of love triangle thing, or love quadrangle, or however many people are involved. You've got Anne O'Neill, who was married to Lord O'Neill, who was away during the war, having an affair with Esmond, who was like a newspaper media baron at the time. I think he owned the Daily Mail, if I remember correctly. So they're having an affair. Along comes old Fleming, starts having an affair with Anne herself. So there's like these 4 people, all of them sort of linked somewhat kind of strangely. But that whole thing actually happened. That whole kind of love group, if I suppose you'd call it, was actually pretty real, which was good. And it was interesting to see kind of that dynamic, I guess, between them.
Yeah, well, I think pretty much every character ended up with every character at one point or other, both
That is true.
historically and in the TV series. Because obviously he was seeing Muriel right at the time, and there was that scene where Anne had gone upstairs with Esmond, and he ended up sleeping with her friend, with Anne's friend, and like being a bit vicious with her, and obviously the friend wasn't too keen on that. And there were one or two other girls on the side, and then, like you said, so he's seeing Anne and she's seeing Esmond. I think you've got the whole thing of when people are married back then, that's you're married for life. And Fleming obviously wasn't into that. He wanted to see as many women as he could, and I think everyone knew about Anne, didn't they? About her, what she was doing, and obviously that's why his mum wasn't too keen on her in the TV series and obviously in real life.
How did you feel about that scene where him and Anne go upstairs during the air raid, and there's the bomb lands, and then everything sort of blows up around them? How did you feel about that?
Not good, really. I like the idea that he went up to see her, and at the same time Esmond was going up to try and find them, and he might catch them. And obviously they did have chemistry without a doubt. Dominic Cooper, although he wasn't as good, they might have been a better person to portray in Fleming. I thought he and Laura Pulver both had good chemistry and had that something between them. So that was good. But the whole kiss when the windows are exploding either side of them, I was just like, come on, I mean, what are you trying to do? Win an Oscar or something? It was, I wasn't taken by that bit anyway, put it that way.
I like that. What you trying to do? Win an Oscar?
Yeah. What did you think?
I was much the same. I was like, oh, come on, this is a bit over fucking dramatic, isn't it?
Yeah.
I suppose what I wanted is, I mean, like, the question it begs of me is like, who are they making this for, right?
Yeah. Because
I think largely, if they're making it for Bond fans, people like you and I, it's just going to piss him off. Because we know sort of who Fleming is, what he was like, and all the rest of it, and they haven't captured that, I don't think, in this. And like scenes like that just make me think, oh man, is this for like people who are just like that? No, they watch a Bond when it comes on the telly on Sunday. And that's as far as it goes. Is that who they're catering it for? I'm not sure who this show is for, because it certainly doesn't feel like it's for us hardcore geeks.
No, I don't think it is. I think you're right. I think it's for your average TV goer who's seen the odd Bond, who's heard of the name Ian Fleming, who maybe is a Dominic Cooper fan. Maybe the trailer did look pretty decent, so that's obviously probably worked in their favour and got a few people on board. And the hard thing for us as well, you got to remember, is when we're watching it from sort of a Bond fan point of view, so it's hard not to analyse it. It's hard to just sit back and watch it as a show just to enjoy it purely for that. Yeah. And I guess if we watched it again, we might be able to do that. But knowing that we were going to review it, plus being kind of Bond sort of fans or whatever, you can't help but analyse certain things about it. It's trickier for us, I guess, to perhaps appreciate it than someone who's just watching it off the cuff, who might be taken in by it all.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess you're absolutely right. It's kind of one of those things of, I think maybe that's where it failed. Is it sort of, the water was muddied somewhat, and I think it would have been a very different show if they were like, let's make this for the Bond fans, the people who they've seen all 23 movies, or 25 if you're gibbling, and then it would have been more of a kind of a factual reality kind of thing, rather than what we ended up with. But I guess, like, sort of moving on as you go through like episode 3 and stuff, you've got the opening sequence, which is sort of like the very beginning of Skyfall, isn't it? It's like he's got his gun and he's walking down a shadowy corridor, and then all of a sudden all these bullets are flying around everywhere, and then is he defusing a bomb, is it, at the end?
That's
like he
right,
gets his little wire cutters out and he's snipping away, and then it's like, oh, it's a training exercise. I mean, to me it was like, oh, I can see what you're trying to do, but like, again, it just seems silly is what it seems like. How did you feel about that?
Well, it was almost trying to do a Bond's pre-title sequence, wasn't it? He got the paint shot on the back, like, the Living Daylights with the paint and that sort of thing. And it's almost a bit half Bond, half Mission Impossible as he's trying to avoid all the gunfire running down. I mean, the opening bit where he's walking with the gun, I mean, that's fine, because it's trying to portray a bit of Bond and stuff. And I think that was okay. But yeah, like you said, they were trying to do something. I guess it worked on certain levels. It was all right, I mean, I guess they've got to do something.
And I think that sums up our review of this piece. Well, they had to fucking do something, didn't they? Let's just cobble together a scene.
Yeah, they didn't really, progress the story much. I guess what they were doing was the lead into the whole potential K protocol and Fleming. Yeah. It's testing him to see how he would do in the field, basically, isn't it? Because the one thing which I guess they had throughout the TV series, which apparently was very true as well, was Fleming's sort of desire to be out there, to see some action. Yeah. And you think to yourself, well, if someone's in that sort of position, privileged position, he is the chocolate sailor. He's sitting behind his desk with his big dairy milk or whatever he's got. And he doesn't have to risk his life and limb. Oh yeah, they just make that up. Everyone knows Fleming. He's not really like that. They just make him up, to sound good. But actually, every documentary and whatever says, that they just wouldn't let him. He went to he went to France at one time, I think, and obviously he was too important to do anything else. But he really did want to get out there, sort of thing. Yeah,
well, that's one of the things you said, isn't it? That sequence in France where he's heading back home and there's all those people trying to get away from Bordeaux, I think it was. Is that right?
Yeah, that's it, Bordeaux.
And that sequence where he sort of takes charge and actually kind of organises that situation, that actually happened, and he did actually physically do that, which is pretty cool. But there was one quote in episode 3 which made me bristle, and I wondered how you felt about it.
Okay.
Which is where they're sat around in the round table. It reminded me of Octopussy, where they're all sat around in the round table with the map in the background.
Yeah.
And then one of the guys goes, 30 AU is a rogue outfit. They seem to think they have a license to kill. I was like, oh, fucking hell, they're rogue commandos. That's what they're supposed to do. Like, why are you saying that? Because of course they've got a license to kill,
Well, yeah, it did seem a bit silly. I guess they were trying to play. I think that guy who said that was supposedly like from the army, and they were anti-navy. I don't know if he was the army. Was he army? He might be. But anyway, he was kind of running things, wasn't he? And they weren't too keen on the navy. But that line was a bit silly because, I mean, this is war. What are you going to go in? A duster, a feather duster or something,
Go in with a pot of tea for two. I sailed, chap. Let's settle this like gentlemen with a cup of tea. But I just, I don't know. I just felt like it was just like wedged in there just to like be a Bond reference that is going to supposedly make us go, ooh, but in fact just made us go, oh.
Yeah.
But yeah. So the thing about that whole K protocol thing, which is the sequence where they say, okay, if you want to go out into the field, go and you've got to go and kill a man. Basically, here's this guy. He's going to be in this room in this building. Go and kill him. And then there's the scene where he kind of comes in. He's got the gun out, and he bottles it. The guy beats him up and turns the gun on him, and it's a blank in there. Now, apparently, that was actually a real thing that they did during the war, just to kind of test people's nerves and all the rest of it. Whether Fleming actually took part in that test, I don't know. And the K protocol thing is a fictional name. It wasn't called that, but that actual test did exist, which I think is very cool.
Yeah, I do. I suppose that's the closest thing to Bond and what he does.
Yeah, absolutely. The 2 kills to become a 00. It's that kind of thing, isn't it? But obviously that was real kills rather than simulated.
Yeah.
But yeah, I kind of like that sequence actually. I thought that was something that kind of worked quite well. And again, I thought, that's bollocks. But then when I read about it, I was like, oh, actually, it was real. So that was pretty cool.
It had quite a cool tense sort of part to it, but you kind of always knew he wasn't going to do it. I guess from history, that he wouldn't have done it because otherwise he might have gone in the field and like properly, and he didn't. But no, I found that whole idea was good, and I guess even today there might be organisations or even things like MI6 where you might have to do something similar, perhaps not quite as unpolished as that scenario, but you know, you've got to show that you're capable of doing that in some manner. So it's I imagine quite tricky to have that in you, I guess.
Yeah. So like the next part, this is where it kind of falls apart for me, is that
Right.
whole thing about where he actually goes into the field and there's the whole sort of story about German nuclear secrets falling into Russian hands. So he goes into the field to get those secrets, and then he gets there and there's the German guy trying to burn everything. And then, I mean, there's pardon me if I'm wrong, in which case I'll take my tongue firmly out of my mouth and stick it somewhere else, but like that didn't happen, did it?
Well, as far as I'm aware, no. I think that was all fabricated, and I think that was the whole. That was part of the series that they were trying to get across. I know they started each episode with everything I write has a precedent in truth, which is basically like, there is a bit of truth in what I say, but it's not everything that I say is truth. And I guess what they were trying to do with it is exactly the same with the series, in terms of certain scenes had layers of truth in it, but obviously they dramatized it. But this one, I don't think was set on any any sort of scene which was partially true. I think it was a complete fabrication.
Because there was that weird bit at the end, wasn't it, where Monday says to him, "Oh, that was a story that wasn't true, was it?" And then there's this sort of whole thing where he almost says he made the whole sequence up.
Yeah.
But it's not sort of clear, so it was like, well, what happened then?
Yeah.
It was just all a bit confused for me, that part.
The thing that I gathered from it is that he just made it all up. So everything that we've seen was his story written down, but in visualization.
Yeah.
And he basically went to France. He obviously what did he actually gain from it? Did he gain any of that information or not?
I think because there's the sequence where he escapes, all the Germans turn up and his mate gets his gun out, shooting about 30 Germans. He dies. Fleming gets his gun out, runs away. And there's a scene where they're caught by the Russians and then he lets them escape and the German guy gets us killed, executed. So he did escape with the papers, I guess. But did
he have with the papers in the truck? So I guess so. So yes. So if he did get the papers and he got the papers, great. And I think it was probably more the case of he turned up. They said, yes, here you go. And he went, thanks, see you later. And that's probably what happened. And then obviously he expanded on it. So for the TV series, I think you can allow that a bit, because if Fleming had actually written that as a story to pass off, even though it didn't happen, then, that's showing his kind of early stages of thinking about stories for Bond and what have you.
I guess so.
And I personally, I actually did quite like that scene in terms of where you knew that you could see the Germans coming and you were like, crap, there's only two of them and, all these guys, and the guns were going off. And I quite liked it. I didn't like it in terms of, I knew it was bullshit basically, but I still thought the scene was quite enjoyable and sort of had a good bit of action, and it was quite tense as well.
Now, leading on, when we talk about episode 4, one thing strikes me about episode 4, and this is shocking in the sense that I only watched it last night. Right. I can barely remember anything that happens in episode 4. I remember it begins with that weird test with the pen with the knockout gas with Monday that he squirts up a nose, and then the little camera and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. And then it just all sort of falls a bit. I just can't remember what happened in that episode. Like I feel like it's one of those episodes that just you could have ended it on episode 3 and that would have been fine.
Yeah, I think that's where it all went in the relationship side of things, wasn't it? With the marriage and will you marry me? Won't you marry me? And all this. So I guess they were playing that side of things a bit more.
Yeah,
although no, episode 4 I think episode 4 had their battle in it. But they had the wedding stuff after that.
Is that have I got that muddled up?
Yeah, I think episode 4 had the battle where they went to Tambeck, I think it was.
Well, maybe that's why I can't remember what happened then, because I've got 3 and 4 mixed up.
Yeah.
What a pillock.
Yeah, so I think that's what happened. And then, the 4 was 3, episode 3 was the body when it floated, when they cast a body to float ashore.
That's right.
And then 4 was the sort of battle in Tambeck.
No wonder I couldn't remember episode 4 because it was episode 3 and 4 or whatever. I'm still confused. But there we go. Whatever happened, it's their fault, not mine. That's
exactly.
Story I'm
it's
sticking
right.
by.
But there was another interesting aspect to it all, which is obviously quite true as well, was Fleming's whole setting up of the CIA. Basically, he was the one which he went over and spoke to the Americans and had these ideas, and they weren't sure at first, and then obviously must have liked some of the things he said, and he was actually the one who set up the Central Intelligence Agency. It was off of his sort of ideas and everything, and that's pretty impressive as well.
Well, good on him, because without that, Felix wouldn't have a job, would he?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it would have just been Bond and Quarrel, I guess.
Now, 2 interesting points about the last episode, the part I do remember, is the whole sequence about where Fleming's mum has given him the whole, she's a dirty woman, this Anne Fleming. Well, she wouldn't be Anne Fleming, she'd have been Anne something else then.
Anne Rothermere.
Yeah. And all the rest of it. And then he scolds her on the fact that she had an illegitimate daughter, which I didn't know about actually until that scene. And I was like, oh, interesting. So that was all true, wasn't it? That he did have a half sister through his mother's dirtiness. Yeah,
well, apparently she, obviously back in those days, her husband had died, and you couldn't marry again back in that generation. So I think she was abroad, and it was a painter that she'd met, Augustus John, his name was. And she just randomly turned up one day, and she's like, "Oh, Ian, you've got a half sister," and it was like, "Oh, okay," So it was one of those things where you could have thought it would have been fabricated if you didn't know, sort of thing. But so I quite like that as well, that sort of payoff that he got, because obviously she was a bitch to him throughout the series, and then he got his own sort of come back against her, but it still hasn't painted her in any good light,
No, I think it was the one scene where I was like, I
did like it.
Now, the thing that I think is unforgivable happened at the end of this episode, and I don't even know what they were doing, right? There he is having a chinwag with his brother, old Peter, good old Peter, bless him, and he says, "Oh, I'm going to write fiction, blah, blah, blah. Oh, what's this spy going to be called? I'm going to name him after 2 boys from my house, James Aitken and Harry Bond." Now, we all know that is not what happened, right? We all know that is not how Bond was named. So why did they choose to put that in, Chris? Tell me.
Well, at the very end of the episode, when it goes back to GoldenEye and Anne comes over to him and they sort of go off together, it scrolls down and you see Birds of the West Indies by James
Birds
Bond.
of the Windies.
Birds of the Windies by Bondus James. Birds of the Windies. I'm going to write that. That's going to be a new novel. So until I saw that, I was a bit like, okay, well, come on, that's not good. And then they showed that. I thought, okay, so they've got that. And Fleming himself has said, that's how he got the Bond name. But I do remember, like in books or documentaries, whatever, where there has been a lot of other potential names where he might have gotten the name James Bond from. So I believe that he probably did have friends called Harry Bond and James Atkin or whatever it was. But I don't know whether that was influenced him or not.
We should look that up. We should do a little research mission. Listeners, get involved as well. Get on the old Googles and see if we can track down any evidence of a Harry Bond and a James Aitken from Fleming's Eton days. I guess that would have been.
I've got a feeling that it is true in terms of that he did have those friends.
Yeah.
But and I'm glad they showed the book. If they hadn't showed the book, I would have been pissed off, because obviously that is the main thing, and that's what Fleming says himself. And then they had it at the end. So I don't know. It's a bit of a strange one, that, for me. But
well, that just about sort of wraps it up, doesn't it? Really, that's the 4 episode. I suppose if I was to kind of sum up the whole series, I would say it was all right.
Yeah.
A missed opportunity. Get somebody else apart from Dominic Cooper. Stick with the score because that was nice. Tone down a bit of the bondage. See what I did there?
Like it.
And it might have been a bit better. What do you think?
Yeah. I think exactly that. Plus, I mean, the CG, I guess they just didn't have the money to shoot properly and what have you. Maybe a little less of the exteriors because some of that CG was naff. But yeah, I think someone else could have pulled off the role a bit better. I think more rounded characters as well, because you've got, like we said, for us, two people who we kind of warmed to out of the entire series. If anyone, if before you watch this, you're like, what people would you like? What people do you want to see as rounded characters? You'd obviously say Fleming, and he didn't really have that good side to him, like you said. He was a bastard, he was a prick to women, he was like a snob or whatever. He did that. That's okay, but he still had good bits to him as well. He was still friends to people. He was still nice. He was still, whatever, which wasn't shown. So make that rounded. Like you said, way too sort of wimpy, way too easily bent over. And that you can't imagine him being the head of naval intelligence for someone who's that weak.
Absolutely not.
And like you can imagine Bernard Lee's M was, he'd be someone who could actually handle his job, whereas the character portrayed in the TV series wasn't. So I think you just need stronger, more rounded characters, and the mum as well. Give her like at least something that makes her at least partially nice,
I think that's totally what it is. Is just like I say, when Fleming would come out with like a quip or a one-liner or did anything, I didn't think it was very cool. Like Connery can come out with a line, he can behave like an absolute bastard, and in real life you would think, man, this guy's an asshole. But for whatever reason, you still think, man, you're a dude. Fleming just annoyed me throughout the whole thing. It was like all his little lines were just like, oh, shut up, you smarmy little git. Do you know what I mean?
He was a bit like a mummy's boy that was unhappy at not getting his own way and stuff.
That's absolutely right. He just came across as a spoiled little brat at the end of the day. He didn't come across as anybody who sort of, which might have been true. You never know. But like, it's just in the way it was portrayed, it was just like, oh man, I don't like this guy. He's not likable. And like you say, the majority of the characters weren't in the whole thing.
No, I agree. I think. Like you, it was all right. It could have been better. I'm still glad they did it because it's nice to see something a bit different and what have you. But could have been a bit better. But
if you were to give it a rating out of 10, what would you give it?
Say 4.
Yeah.
4 to 5.
There was me thinking, I bet Chris is going to be a little bit generous, but you went straight in for 4. I like it.
I would say 4 to 5. Say 4 to 5.
I was going to say exactly the same thing.
Yeah,
like just
4.
Middle of the road is going to be a 4 or 5 for me.
Yeah. Oh, it's definitely not anywhere above a 6. Certain bits were okay, but overall,
Yeah. So one of the things I found in my kind of fact-finding mission after I watched all 4 episodes was that, in actual fact, the 11 of the original Fleming manuscripts for the books are actually available in the Lilly Library at Indiana University in the States. And they've literally got them all there with Fleming's handwritten notes on paragraphs, crossed out sections. And apparently they'll allow you in to actually look at those manuscripts in the sense that you can, like how Indiana Jones will go to some massive archive somewhere and he'll open up this book and like that. And apparently there's a fellow that stands in there with you and keeps an eye on you so you don't like mess it up or nick anything. And like, for example, on their website, if you look at the Lilly Library and type in Bond manuscripts, it's got them all listed there and sort of exactly like what condition they're in and everything. For example, Casino Royale, they've got the original typed manuscript of that. And it says, corrected throughout in blue, black ink and red and lead pencil marks. Bound in green quarter Morocco with title and author in gold on spine label. Spine is in faded condition. Isn't that incredible?
That's not bad.
And at that library, they've got Casino Royale, Live and Let Die, Moonraker. They've got Diamonds Are Forever, From Russia with Love, Dr. No, Goldfinger, For Your Eyes Only. They've got Spy Who Loved Me. They've got On Her Majesty's Secret Service. They've got You Only Live Twice. And that's it. Isn't that incredible?
All original manuscripts.
All like the original version with Fleming's handwritten corrections and God knows what, all included in there, like the actual original ones. Isn't that
That is
amazing?
brilliant. Yeah. So trip there next year as well.
Pilgrimage, man. We need to
Yeah.
do this. We need to do this.
It's going to be a busy year next year,
It's
traveling.
going to be, yeah. I've got to get married at some point as well. So
mean,
I'll see if I can shoehorn that in the middle.
Yeah.
And then, maybe the honeymoon, we can just go to Indiana and the missus can hang out. I don't know.
Yeah.
I hope she doesn't listen to this episode. So there it is. So you know what it's time for?
Go on. What is it?
Bond trivia.
Ooh, I like it.
Okay, so I think... Did you go first? You went first. didn't you?
Yeah, I think I went first.
So let's hear it then. Let's hear the question again, and then we'll go through it.
Okay, so my question for Bond Trivia this podcast is, what did Noel Coward call Ian Fleming's house in Jamaica?
I don't know. I'm going to go at the guess and call it Goldeneye.
Oh, close. No, it wasn't really. He called it Golden Eye, Ears and Throat. Because
interesting.
He said it had a very medical feel to it, and it was very sparse and sort of clean and white and almost like a hospital. So yeah.
Oh, interesting.
So that's what he called it, obviously jokingly, but
that's another place we definitely have to go to, man, because it's like a resort now, isn't it? You
yeah.
can go and stay there.
Do you know what? I think I've got a newspaper cutout that when it first turned into a resort, it said you could get all the different types of, you could get like all these beach houses, and they went up in different levels. You could get like ones with your own personal lagoon that you could swim in, some with your own personal pier if you've got a speedboat or a boat or whatever, and then some that are a little bit inland but have access to a private beach, and so yeah, that would be pretty damn good.
I need that in my life, man.
I
need that in my life.
It's got to be done.
Whatever happened to the golden typewriter? Do we know? Is that still there?
I'm not sure. No, one thing I did find out, which was quite interesting, was that he got the golden typewriter even before Casino Royale was published. So
interesting.
That's the sort of confidence that he had in the book, is that it was a bit sort of affluent as well, I guess. But it was a case of this is going to be good. I'm going to prove it, and he got his golden typewriter before Casino Royale was published, and then obviously used it for everything else.
What
which
man,
is quite cool. Yeah, definitely.
So on to my trivia question.
Yeah.
Who was it that played Ian Fleming in the TV movie The Secret Life of Ian Fleming?
Now this one, I honestly don't remember because I don't know because I haven't seen it. Do you know when it was released?
I think it was 1992. I might be wrong. It was around that kind of kind of
92.
era.
So my idea of Sean Bean's probably out the window. Let's have a look. Okay, so 92, Ian Fleming. Who was around in 92? I'm going to say good old Pierce Brosnan.
No.
Who was it?
You're going to kick yourself when I tell you who it is.
Go on.
Jason Connery.
Oh, that old chestnut.
Now, do you have any idea who his dad might be?
Jason Connery. Doesn't ring any bells.
No. I'm sure it doesn't. But there you go. Jason Connery, son of Sean, played Fleming in, I think it was 92. It was around that era. It was either 1990 or 92, if I remember correctly.
Oh, great.
But there you go. That's
have you seen it? Did you?
I used to have it on VHS many years ago. I haven't seen it in a very long time. But it was another one of those that was all right. You know, it wasn't great, but it was all right.
Not bad.
So next up, we've got to do some Bond facts, haven't we?
We have indeed. So seeing as I went first with the trivia, I think you should go first with the Bond facts.
All right, let's do it then. So Bond fact number 1. Fleming has the same birthday as Ernst Stavro Blofeld, 28th of May, 1908. What a coincidence, eh?
That is. And do you know what's an even big, or just as coincidence as that?
Go on.
You happen to share your birthday with Cubby Broccoli.
Do I really?
Not on the year, obviously.
I was going to say.
But
Dude.
yeah, the 5th of April happens to be your birthday and Cubby Broccoli's birthday.
That's amazing. I'm happy with that.
And also my mum as well. I just put a shout out to my mum there.
Shout out to Chris's mum.
Oh, yeah.
Very nice. Well, there you go. Everybody knows my birthday now. So you feel free to send gifts and presents and donations on the 5th of April, which is coming up very soon. Very nice. Fun fact number 2. Fleming claimed the name of his estate Goldeneye came from two sources, from Carson McCullers' Reflections in a Goldeneye and from Operation Goldeneye, which was a contingency plan he developed during the Second World War in case the Germans invaded Gibraltar through Spain.
That's good. Very
That's
good.
interesting, isn't it?
Yeah.
Bon fact number 3, Ian Fleming never owned a Bentley or an Aston Martin.
No, that's
That
also
is a
interesting.
surprise, isn't it?
Yeah. I know, because he was into his fast cars, and I know he had like a Ford Thunderbird, and I think I read an article where he was really close friends with someone that owned an Aston Martin. I think it was like the equivalent of a DB3 or whatever, and I think that is who influenced his decision for Goldfinger. You know, the novel.
Yeah.
When he wrote about it, but yeah, strange, because I would have thought he would have had at least one or the other.
You would have, didn't you? I would especially have expected him to have a Bentley. I don't know, but, yeah.
No, like especially in the earlier days, it's that sort of thing. Like, you know, like the Bentley obviously that young Bond has in the Higson books.
Yeah.
I could imagine Fleming in something similar to that. Really.
Yeah, absolutely. Bond fact number 4, and this is probably the biggest surprise of them all.
Right.
Ian Fleming had very strong can't get my bloody words out. Start again. Number 4, Ian Fleming had very strong views on road safety and campaigned for more dramatic road signs. Now, I didn't see that one coming.
No, especially not for someone who was a bit of a petrol head of his day, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. And then last Bond fact for me, Fleming lived in an old chapel at 22 Ebury Street in London from 1934 to 1945, and to this day has a blue plaque outside that says this Ian Fleming, author of Bond, lived here.
Wow. And also for our listeners, that was the same place that we used for the exterior shots in the TV series.
There we go. We're going to have to make a pilgrimage, man, and go and check that out.
Although I don't know if their plaque was on it in the TV. I'm guessing they must have digitally removed it.
Yeah, they CGI'd it out probably.
I don't
there
know.
We go.
Okay. Well, I've got some lovely Ian Fleming Bond facts too. So I will go with, when Ian Fleming in his early days, he was at Eton. He basically, I don't know what he did, whether he sort of answered back or did some sort of misdemeanor, but something pretty bad, and he was scheduled to be beaten with a cane. Lovely days as they were.
Maybe that's where he got the fetish from.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. It doesn't say if it was a female or male who caned him, but there we go.
He certainly liked a bit of slap and tickle, didn't he?
Yeah, certainly did. And basically, his caning was due at the same time as the Eton cross-country race. So he asked if he could be beaten beforehand so he could still run. So, which is pretty crazy, but apparently, so he got a full, beating, and we're not talking about a little tap. We're talking a full on, so that his legs and his butt were bleeding and blood coming through like his trousers. He'd been beaten that badly, and he still did the race, still took part in the cross country, and he came second out of everyone with that. So that was pretty impressive.
That's a pretty Bondian thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Coming through in a clinch and still, well, it would have been better if he'd have won, but second place is still very impressive.
Second place is not bad.
He probably would have had he not been beaten on his ass with a stick.
All 4 of the Fleming brothers went to Eton, and one of whom, Michael Fleming, died at the start of the Second World War, which is a shame. Obviously, having lost his father, Valentine, in the First World War as well.
He wasn't mentioned in the show at all, was he, Michael?
No, he wasn't. I think it was just Peter. And there is another brother as well, who I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but he obviously wasn't mentioned. I guess Peter was the one who was like the author early on and everything like that. So
yeah.
And he sort of had the ladies back then as well, I guess. Interesting one as well, I found out. Patrick Macnee, who was Sir Godfrey Tibbett in A View to a Kill, was actually a wartime colleague of Fleming's.
Very nice.
Which is quite crazy if you think how long ago, obviously, that was. But yeah, he was great in A View to a Kill, so that was quite good. The whole gambling scene, I think we kind of mentioned this with the Germans in Estoril, happened for real, and bancoed them 3 times, lost 3 times, and cleaned himself out, which is a shame. So it's a good idea, but obviously set on the path for the book Casino Royale.
Where's Vespa when you need her, eh?
Exactly, I know. She's got the money. And Fleming, Fleming met up with John F. Kennedy. This was after he had, John F. Kennedy has sort of said that From Russia with Love was one of his top 10 books. And he met up for dinner with him. And during dinner, one of the discussions led to Cuba and Castro. And one of Fleming's ideas was to drop leaflets in Cuba saying that any men with beards were prone to catching radioactivity and were impotent. So that was his idea.
That's very interesting propaganda, isn't it? I
Yeah.
mean, that's a very unusual thing. What can we do to the Cubans to like really mess them up? I know. Let's diss bearded men.
Yeah.
What the fuck was that all about?
Well, I don't. Unfortunately, they didn't go through with it, or perhaps fortunately, I don't know. So we wouldn't have known the outcome. But yeah, that was one of his other ideas which he had. So there we are, Bond, Faxi, and Fleming.
Yeah, well, there we go. That's so funny. That's like almost like a playground taunt, isn't it? It's like running out, poking them in the ribs, and be like, nah, running away. Like that's a full-on military operation.
Yeah.
But there you go. That's, those were the days, eh? All right, so you know what it is. It's time for the quotes. Guess the quote.
I do like the quote section. It has taken my fancy. These last few weeks.
I wasn't sure when you performed last week, but I think I have it.
Right.
Initially, I thought it was one person, and then I think it's another person from that film. So
Okay.
I think I might have it, but let's hear it performed again.
Okay.
And then we'll see if I'm right.
I'll try my best, and I do have an add-on line.
Okay.
So I'll say the first bit, see what you think, but there is another little add-on line if needs be. Okay.
Okay. All right.
Okay. So here we go. Quote for this week. I'll keep my eyes open this time.
All right. Good man.
Okay. This is where we leave you, Mr. Bond.
Okay. I think
Okay.
my mind immediately leapt to Hugo Drax, but I don't think it's Hugo Drax. I think it's the pilot in the plane at the beginning of Moonraker before they jump out, leaving Bond in the plane.
This is where we leave you, Mr. Bond. That is absolutely right. Yeah, it's good stuff. It's good. Yeah, that's superb, man. Well done.
Wicked. I'm happy.
That was obviously my oral skills there that got that.
It was the
across.
strength of the performance, definitely. What was the add-on line? Had I not?
It was going to be, this is where we leave Mr. Bond. God, I've forgotten that as well now. That's quite bad. Enjoy your flight. It was going to be, I don't know if that would have helped or not, but anyway.
That would have definitely pointed me in the right direction.
Yeah. So, cool. And so that means quote for next time. What have we got?
Okay. The quote, which the answer to will be revealed in our next episode. Are you ready?
I'm ready. Yeah, definitely.
Okay. I think you'll probably guess who the character is immediately.
Right.
But I'm not sure whether you'll get the film and the situation.
Right. Okay. So the character's been in more than one film.
Yes, that's a very big clue already, isn't it? Where is he? What's he doing?
Oh, that's a good one. Okay.
I'll do it one more time.
Yeah.
Where is he? What's he doing?
Like it. Okay. Interesting. Now I haven't got that yet, so I'm going to have a good think about that one.
Right,
Do we have
cool.
one more? Are we allowed one more?
Certainly, I'll do it that time.
Thank you.
Where is he? What's he doing?
Cool. Okay. I'll have to have a good think about that one.
There
I'm
we
a
go.
bit stumped on that, but good stuff.
All right, so that just about wraps up today's episode of James Bond Radio. Next time, because we're doing every other episode is a movie review, we're going to be looking at Goldfinger.
It's a good one.
It is a good one. I'm very excited about this. I'm very excited to actually watch through all the directors' commentaries and all that kind of stuff for this one. I think it's going to be a gold mine of information. You see what I did there?
That was so good. That was so good. Yeah.
Thanks very much. I got to say, one of my favourite pre-titles of all time is the Goldfinger pre-title sequence.
Fantastic. You got a whole movie in one little 4-minute scene or whatever.
I always wondered who the guy was who was doing the heroin flavoured bananas and financing revolutions, but I guess we'll never know.
We do. His name was Mr. Ramirez.
Was he? How do we know that?
Because when Bond says, I'm sure he says, Mr. Ramirez won't be using heroin-flavoured bananas to finance revolutions.
Shit, dude, I need to pay attention. I don't know.
But it's a good one, though.
Bond has been telling me who it was for years, and I've just ignored him every time. Damn it. All right, so
Cool.
That's all for today, and we'll see you in approximately 1 week with our next episode, our review of Goldfinger. I've been Tom Sears.
I've been Chris Wright.
Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time. Take care.
See you then. Bye.